Hi guys, have a nice day. So my name is Shamira Iqmal bin Sharizan, and today I will representing my group Tarbiyah Futuria in our discussion and research about economic growth and public welfare, the relationship between GDP and living standards in developing countries. So our presentation will explore how much the economic growth, especially through GDP, will impact people's quality of life in different parts of the world. So, as we can see, the economic growth is usually seen as a sign of country success. It means that the country is producing more goods and services for its people. A common way to measure this growth is through GDP, or as we all know as gross domestic product, or GDP, or gross domestic product. But the question is, does a higher GDP really mean better lives for everyone? Can GDP growth reflect the real well-being of society, especially in developing countries? So we have our own objective, which is we are aiming to examine how the GDP growth affects real improvements in living standards, especially in 4 areas, which is healthcare, education, income distribution, and poverty reduction. We are focusing on developing countries to see if growth really benefits everyone. So for the next part is how we did our research. So our research is using the qualitative research method, which is we studied the existing documents, reports, and academic sources to understand the relationship between economic growth and welfare. All our data came from secondary sources, and our approach helps us understand the issue from many different angles. So GDP, what is GDP and what did GDP do? The GDP measures the total value of goods and services in a country each year. It is so important, but it has limits. It ignores things like informal work, inequality, and quality of life. That's why the other indicators like HDI, GPI, and MPI are used to get a fuller picture. Economists like Amartya Sen believe that the true development is about improving people's capability and not just increasing income. In many developing countries, GDP might be rise, but the poor don't benefit much due to inequality and bad governance. So for the next part, case study. Now we are looking at Malaysia, our own country. So Malaysia has a steady GDP growth, as we can see, especially through trade, services, and industry. But GDP doesn't always deliver in reflecting people's well-being. As we all know, after the COVID-19 pandemic, the economy began to recover. Yet, income inequality remains a big issue. The B40 group, the bottom 40%, struggles with high living costs and unequal access to healthcare and education. As of March of 2025, the employment still below 4%, and the rate is 3.1%, or about 530,000 people. The government has introduced a lot of initiatives such as STR and SARA that worth almost 13 billion ringgit just to help the 9 million people in Malaysia. The next country that we are studying on GDP effect is United States of America, one of the largest economy in the world. So as we know, the US has a very high GDP, over $25 trillion. However, it also faces big challenges such as income inequality, homelessness, and student debt. The GDP growth in the US is driven by the technology and innovation, but still there's a lot of people still struggle. From an Islamic perspective, real prosperity is not just wealth. It includes justice, equity, and well-being, guided by Maqasid al-Sharia. So we're discussing about growth versus the inequality. So, who really benefits from economic growth? Sometimes it's only been rich, urban elites, and capital owners. The poor and rural communities are often left behind. Adam Smith quoted that true wealth is not gold, but the goods and services available to people. This means real success happens when the majority enjoy a better quality of life. If growth is not shared fairly, it can lead to more inequality and wasted potential. So in our discussion and our research, we found that there's 4 main causes of inequality. The first one is corruption, followed by weak government policies, urban-rural divide, and poor job quality. These factors prevent fair distribution of resources and limit the benefits of growth for the poor. So for the strength and the weaknesses for GDP growth is, as we know, the GDP has limitations. It doesn't account for things like depreciation or hidden unemployment. For an example, in Malaysia, GDP growth mainly comes from within sector productivity, not from moving workers to better jobs. Since the 2000s, Malaysia has felt premature deindustrialization, with labor shifting to less productive sectors like low-end services. To improve real living standards, productivity and structural changes are very necessary. To sum up our discussion, we came up with 6 main points in conclusion. The GDP is an important tool, but it does not show the full potential of human welfare. I mean, not showing the full picture of human welfare. Economic benefits are often not shared equally. The poor, rural, and vulnerable groups are frequently left behind. From the Islamic economics view, true development includes justice, equity, and social welfare. GDP should be used with other indicators to understand real progress. And finally, the government needs to take balanced approaches so that growth benefits everyone, especially those in need. And now we are heading to the end of the presentation. Well, I would like to say thanks a lot for the attention, and we hope that this presentation gives you insights into how GDP and living standards are connected. So thank you and have a nice day. Bye.